Huki, Nitanuku Warren Big Bull. I am a Stoney and Blackfoot First Nations hailing from Treaty 7 territories, and I'm excited to be your host for this production. Today, we will be joined by many different guests, showcasing and sharing their stories. Today will be a fun and exciting event, but first, let's begin with a land acknowledgement from Stardale and Kids Up Front.
Hi, my name is Brooke Strong Eagle. I am from Pasqua Reservation in Saskatchewan. I'm in 11th grade and I'm here with Stardale's Women's Group. We recognize and remain committed to the Articles of Treaty between the Blackfoot, Kainai, Piegan, Sarcee, and Stoney people and Her Majesty on behalf of the Canadian people signed on the 22nd day of September 1877 for the land as described in the treaty and on which we stand today in exchange for several benefits, payments, and reserves promises so solemnly made. We are committed to abiding by all stipulations, obligations, and conditions therein contained to the chiefs and Indian named as if ourselves and the bands were originally contracting parties at Blackfoot Crossing.
Hello everyone, my name is Ramza Baki and I'm a program coordinator at Kids Up Front Calgary. I want to share our land acknowledgement with you today. Land acknowledgement is incredibly important because it's the first step towards reconciliation and decolonization. In the spirit of our efforts to promote reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional territories of the Blackfoot, the Tusutina, the Stoney Nakoda First Nation, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all the people who make their homes in Treaty 7 territory in southern Alberta. We respectfully acknowledge that the province of Alberta is composed of the Treaty 6, Treaty 7, Treaty 8 territory, and the traditional lands of the First Nation and Métis people. Thank you.
Thank you, Burke and Noir, for that land acknowledgement. Next, we want to start with some history about today's presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Phyllis Webstad. I am Shawetmch from the Strachamch, Kenno Creek, Chatlam, Dog Creek First Nation, which is about 1.5 hours southwest from Williams Lake, BC. I grew up with my granny on the Dog Creek Reserve until I was 10, then moved with my auntie after she finished university. When I had just turned 6, I was sent to the St. Joseph Indian Residential School near Williams Lake, a place we called the Mission. My granny bought me a shiny new orange shirt to go to school in. When I got there, I was stripped, my clothing taken away, including my new orange shirt, and I never saw it again. I was no longer excited to be going to school. I wanted to go home to Granny. I had to stay there for 300 sleeps. No matter how much all of us little kids cried, it didn't matter. No one listened to us. Our feelings didn't matter. We didn't matter. I am the third generation that attended residential school. Both my grandmother and mother attended the mission for 10 years each. Today is a day to honor and remember residential school survivors and their families. Every child matters, even if you're an adult. We must also remember those children that never made it and are no longer with us. Today is a day for survivors to tell their stories and for us to listen with open hearts. I am humbled and honored that you are all taking part in Orange Shirt Day. When I was in school, I didn't know my own history, so I am overjoyed that you are taking part and learning the true history of Canada's First Peoples. Gukshjem, thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis Webstad, for that very important video. Now, let's hear a bit more about this program from the Kids Up Front team.
Hello friends, thank you Warren. As we all know, COVID-19 has drastically changed the lives of children across all regions of Canada. school closures, disrupted routines, and the loss of recreational activities have and continue to affect the development, both mentally and physically, of young people across our country. In an effort to support the children that we serve, Kids Up Front created the Kids at Home program, providing access to meaningful experiences from the comfort and safety of home. A very important part of our Kids at Home program is what we call our virtual neighborhood, presented by TD. This program connects children and youth through virtual events that share positive messaging, create new interests, and promote inclusion while educating and inspiring growth around important topics and connections to community. We look forward to sharing Indigenous culture with you today and the importance around reconciliation. Thank you. Nitsinitaki.
Thanks to the info, Kids Up Front. I'm very excited to get today's show started. We have lots of special guests, and our first guest, Rich Spavier, also known as Blackfoot and from Siksika First Nation, and is the founder and manager of Drumbeat Entertainment. Blackfoot is an award-winning DJ and radio host, winning the 2019 National Campus and Community Radio Award for Best Electronic Music Show in Canada. He will be joining us every intermission to provide us with amazing live music. Let's check it out.
Okay, next Niswanagok Blackfoot. Nade Dudu Siksika. Hello everyone. My name is Blackfoot. I'm from Siksika Nation. I'm also the manager of Drumbeat Entertainment based here in Calgary, which focuses on Indigenous events through music and community. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Thanks for having me, and happy National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Suka happy.
Thank you so much, Rich. You can catch Blackfoot on the airways spinning the most fire res house on the Doghouse. Saturday afternoons from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. on CGSW 90.9 FM and rocking virtual and live stages any given night. He has traveled all over Western Canada to perform and offer DJ workshops to both youth in various Indigenous communities across Turtle Island. You can keep up with Blackfoot on Instagram at Blackfoot6, and you can also find out more about Drumbeat at DrumbeatENT on all social media channels. Next up is Chantal Marchand, a visual artist and beater. During her studies at the Fine Arts at Georgian College in 2019, she was involved in local Indigenous centers and began her journey of cultural reconnection. This has enhanced her spiritual, cultural, and mental health, as well as the philosophy of her art practice. At heart, she is an artist. Chantal uses art to communicate her identity, practice wellness, understand the world, and herself. The arts are invaluable to her, and she is always happy to share art to enhance the lives of others. Through her work as an Indigenous advocate and artist, she created Chantal Beads, wearable art by Anagoka. Chantal is now studying Indigenous community and social development as part of this journey. You can follow Chantal's journey on Instagram at Chantal Beads. Now let's check her out.
Ani, Bojo, Chantal Indigenous, Glencairn Nindunjaba, Barrie Ontario Nindunjaba Megwa, and Gawin Inge Kenamasi Indoda. Hello everyone, it's great to have you with me on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to learn something new. Before we get started on a tutorial for the brick stitch, I'll give a quick introduction to myself in English. My name is Chantal and my spirit name is Anangoka. I'm of Métis and Mohawk ancestry, and I'm also an artist and beater. Growing up, I didn't always have access to my culture, and members of my family from older generations actually felt some shame in their identity and tried to hide it due to racism and discrimination where they live. My grandfather, who's now in his 70s, has just applied to the Métis Nation, which is exciting and a very big step for someone that grew up with shame and discrimination. So that being said, I didn't always have access or pride for my culture, but I did get to experience my culture through cultural arts that were passed down from my father and generously shared with me in community centers. I think that for any culture, arts are a big way of expressing ourselves and feeling pride for who we are and of our identity, and that's why I'm excited to share this beading practice with you today. You may have heard the phrase beading is medicine, and I'll just explain why that is true to me and what that means to me. Beading is a way for me to honor my ancestors, and it's also a way for me to wear my pride for being Indigenous. If we look at the history of beading, it's also a beautiful way to bring culture and communities together. Throughout history, different cultures have used beading and different kinds of beads and materials and designs. Traditionally, many Indigenous people of North America would whittle beads out of bones to use every part of the animal in a respectful way. When Indigenous peoples of North America began trading with settlers and Europeans, we were introduced to very small glass beads that gave birth to a large array of beautiful, intricate designs that Indigenous people and beaders became known for. So what I'll be showing you today is how to use the brick stitch to create earrings with seed beads. These are using 11O seed beads, which are very, very tiny little seed beads to create intricate designs with. So miigwech for joining me today, and if you're ready, let's get started. So you're going to want to start by threading your needle and then attaching 2 bugle beads onto your needle and pulling them down to the bottom of the thread. You will then pull your thread back up through the first bugle bead that you threaded and pull the thread taut so that the second bugle bead lays side by side with it. So once we have our 2 foundational bugle beads, we will continue with the brick stitch 1 bead at a time, using the same process of threading the bead and then pulling the thread back up through the bugle bead that is beside it. Once you have pulled the thread up through the bugle bead that is beside it, you will want to pull the thread and needle back down through the bugle bead that you just added to the row. So you went up through the bugle bead that was beside the bead that you added and then back down through the bugle bead that you added to create a thread circle that attaches them. We'll go through this process again together as it can take some getting used to. So I have my one bugle bead added, and I'll pull the thread back around and down through the bugle bead that is beside it, creating a semicircle. Then I will take the thread, following the direction that it's in, and go up through the bugle bead that we just added, completing the circle and drawing the two bugle beads together. We will continue this process all the way through until you have your finished set of bugle beads. And you may want to screenshot or save this image. It is a diagram for a beading design. You may want to refer back to it throughout this video while you're doing your beading. So those longer beads there are our bugle beads, and our smaller beads there are our seed beads. This design has 9 bugle beads across, so if you're following this diagram, you're going to want to attach 9 bugle beads in a row. I also recommend coloring in this diagram with the colors of beads that you're using to create a pattern, so that when you're attaching your bugle beads and your seed beads one by one, you can follow the design by color and have a finished design at the end. So now that we've got all of our bugle beads sitting in a row, we're going to create this little triangle part of the earring on top using a brick stitch and some seed beads. So as you can see, we still have our same piece of thread with the needle attached coming out through the bottom of our row of bugle beads. So we're going to use that piece of thread to thread on 2 little seed beads that will sit on top of our bugle bead row. We will then tuck the needle under the second thread bridge, which are these tiny little pieces of thread that you see in between the bugle beads. And then we'll pull the needle up through the second bead that was attached, like so, sort of like what we did with the bugle beads, and pull that taut. Then, just like we did when we were attaching our bugle beads, we'll add another seed bead one at a time, but this time we're attaching them under each thread bridge. So the third bead goes underneath the third thread bridge. Then it gets pulled up, and then the thread goes back up through the bead that we just attached, creating a loop and attaching the seed bead to the row of bugle beads. We will then repeat this step until our row of seed beads fully covers our row of bugle beads. So as you can see, as we attach seed beads to our row of bugle beads, they create their own thread bridges in between each other. Once our first row of seed beads is finished, we're going to start a new row of seed beads by adding 2 seed beads and tucking them under the second thread bridge of our first row of seed beads. And then we're going to pull the needle and thread back up through the bead that is closest to our thread. It is important to note that we only add 2 seed beads at a time whenever we are creating a new row. We also used 2 bugle beads at a time when we created our row of bugle beads, but then continued 1 bead at a time, which we are also going to do using the seed beads after we start our row. So here is a replay of me attaching 1 bead at a time after starting the row. Continue finishing and starting new rows until you have a finished triangle of beads that looks like this. When this is finished, you will have your thread coming out of the top of the triangle, and then you will add 3 extra seed beads and attach them by pulling the needle and thread through the 1 bead on your last row of seed beads. Once this step is done, pull your needle and thread down through the beads on one side of your earring and then pull it down through the bugle bead. And now that our thread is pulled down our bugle bead, we can begin adding fringes to our earring. You can do this by adding a string of beads following the pattern on your design, like so. They look like random colors now, but at the end, hopefully they'll make a nice pattern. Once our desired beads are strung, we will separate the very last bead on our string of beads, and then we will pull the needle all the way up through all of the rest of our strung beads. This part can be tricky, so it's okay if you pull the needle up through in segments, as long as the needle and thread goes through all of the strung beads by the end. Then you will gently pull your needle and thread to tighten your string of beads and create a fringe that is tight enough to keep together but loose enough to still sway. And here I am just making sure the needle comes through all of the beads as I had done it in segments. Once that is finished, you will pull the bead up through the matching bugle bead that sits right above your string of beads and then back down the next bugle bead that is right beside it. Then you simply continue this pattern, always remembering to separate the last seed bead in your string of beads and pulling it up through the corresponding bugle bead and then back down the bugle bead beside it. When you're finished adding all of your fringes, you will pull the needle back up through your last bugle bead, and then you will go up and down all of the bugle beads with your needle until you reach the piece of thread that is left over from when you first started your thread of bugle beads. We are going to tie a knot with the 2 remaining pieces of thread that will keep the whole earring together, so you may want to double or triple knot it. And then we will snip the excess thread, and voila! Now you can use pliers and your earring hook to attach your earring hook through the little loop of beads we made earlier so that your earring can become wearable. And now you have a beautiful finished product that you can wear.
Thanks, Chantel. Up next is Lennon First Rider. Lennon First Rider is both an athlete and a dancer. Involved in fancy dance since the age of 4, Lennon has been a fancy dance finalist and champion at numerous powwows in Canada and the United States. In the junior teen and adult category, he is the 5-time World Ironman Fancy Dance Champion, Piikani Nation, 3 first place, 2 second place. Lennon has been a participant as a fancy dancer for numerous events, such as the Calgary Stampede and Inspire Awards. While attending school in Calgary, Lennon was an active athlete. He played basketball for John 23rd Junior High School, grades 7 and 9, member of Calgary Catholic Junior High School Athletic Association. Was a team member for Bishop McNally High School basketball, grade 10 to 12, member of Calgary Senior High School Athletic Association. Lennon has participated in many school tournaments advancing to city finals. Lennon has been a member of Team Alberta Basketball twice attending North American Indigenous Games in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Denver, Colorado. Team Alberta winning bronze and silver medals. Lennon has completed the Bold Eagle program, Canadian Armed Forces. Lennon is currently attending Mount Royal University Aboriginal Education Program. Let's see what Lennon's up to.
could just find you. Could you remember if I just remind you? We could start over and just tell the time to slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. This room is cloudy, feels like my mind, nowhere to go, 'cause you was so hard to find is what the fight, or should we just let it go? Slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down.
Thanks, Lennon First Rider. Up next is Brendan Bomberry, co-founder of Turtle Island Lacrosse. Brendan has competed at the highest level of lacrosse. Born and raised in Six Nations, Ontario, Brendan has played at the world stage with the Iroquois Nationals, professionally with Georgia Swarm, Chesapeake Bayhawks, Senior A with the Six Nations Chiefs, Division I at the University of Denver before transferring to Syracuse University, and in the most competitive Junior A league in Canada with the Six Nations Arrows. He's also the only player to ever win both MVP and the Jim Bishop Award for leadership, sportsmanship, and outstanding play in the same year of Junior A lacrosse. Up next, an interview with Brooke and Brendan. Let's check it out.
Hi, Brendan. Do you want to start with the land acknowledgments?
Yeah, of course. For right now, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional homeland of the Onondaga Nation, where I am currently right now in Syracuse, New York. Obviously, want to acknowledge, the water that gives us, life, the trees, the birds, the animals, and everything that comes along with it. Without their beings, we're not able to survive. And I also want to acknowledge the thousands of Indigenous kids that were unearthed at residential schools across North America on Turtle Island, and just want to acknowledge them and make everyone aware of that, and that's something that I keep in my heart and I'm thinking about all the time.
I have a couple questions for you, Brendan. What do you enjoy the most about lacrosse?
For me, I've been playing this game a long time, and it's just something different, about any other game. It's something, I hold close to me. Like I said, it's my ancestors' traditional game. And like I said, hold, close to my heart, and being able to share that with, the next generation of players and people who might not understand the traditional values of our game and what comes with it. And, I find a lot of joy in teaching and talking about those things. And it's something that brings me great happiness. And I hope to play as long as I can, and to be able to give back and coach and do those types of things for, as long as I live.
That sounds good. How were you introduced into lacrosse?
For me, I was introduced at a young age, as a Haudenosaunee people. Like I said, it's a traditional game that, was given to us by our creator. So in our culture, when we're born, we're given a traditional wooden stick that lays with us in our crib. So I would say that's when I was first introduced to it. But, when I started to realize what the game was as I grew older, it started by, me just going to games and watching my uncles play for our local junior A teams, and then on to university. And then, that's just kind of how I became immersed in it. And I live in a small community in Six Nations, Ontario. So, like I said, it's a game we all hold very close to us. And it's basically a rite of passage. If you're, growing up, that's the sport you play. It's hockey in the winter and lacrosse in the summer, and we live and breathe that all the time.
That's wonderful. What advice would you give to Indigenous youth who want to become professional athletes?
I'd say just be patient and know that there are people that are supporting you, and finding people to surround yourself with to get to where you want to go, who have the same goals, who support you. And I think that's really important to find that support system, because honestly, me growing up and going through those things, I wouldn't be able to get to where I am, without my support system, without my family, without my friends, without my teammates. I wouldn't be here today. So, I would say I've been really lucky to find those people. And I hope that, for Indigenous youth, it's more about expanding our horizons and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You're put in situations where you meet new people. They may be different. They might have, different beliefs. They might come from a different background, but, finding common ground and know that, those people are there to support you and those types of things, and just being comfortable with that.
As a leader in the lacrosse community, how do you mentor Indigenous youth?
For me, I really pride myself on, using the game as a vehicle. For me, I was lucky enough to go off to play Division I and gain education through the game of lacrosse. And I don't think that if I didn't have that game and being able to use it as a vehicle, I wouldn't have gone to school, I don't think. And, I wouldn't have learned the things I did. So I think it's important for me to kind of stress that and really take care of our schoolwork and like I said, expanding our horizons and learning new things and, using the game as a vehicle to get to where you want to go. And, for Indigenous youth, it's not always lacrosse. I always say when I do talks, it could be basketball, it could be hockey, it could be, whatever you're passionate about, just using those things as a vehicle to help you succeed and use, goals and things like that to get to where you want to go. Who
would you say was your biggest role model growing up?
Athletically, I would have to say my uncles, Marshall Abrams and Cal Smith. Growing up, like I said, it was always about going to the local junior A games and watching that. And, that was when I first became obsessed with the game and following them around and following their careers and all that type of thing. And, I wanted to be just like them, play on the same teams and go and grow up and do the same things they did. But, I'd have to say for me, it's my dad and my grandpa, and my mom. Those are my true role models, Without them, I'm not the person I am today. And I pride myself more on that and being a good teammate, the intangible things of the games of, being a good teammate, being coachable and all those types of things. I learned those from my parents, my grandparents, and, that's important to me. And I think that's really where I was able to find success in being, successful and that type of thing.
Looking back, what advice would you give your younger self, like now?
I would say everything happens for a reason. You might not know what it means like right now, but, there's going to come a time when you realize, okay, this happened because I'm supposed to be here. Or this happened because I needed this to happen. I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, good or bad, right? There's times, I like to tell a story about, when on my freshman year of college, I was ineligible because I didn't keep up my grades. I wasn't able to play. I wasn't able to be a part of the team. I look back and, that was the first time I had the game taken away from me. I had to take a step back and really think about why I was doing it, what I was doing. And, that allowed me to become a better teammate and to really get back to enjoying the game and not taking anything for granted. And that's something that, has made me the player and even more the person I am today because of that, experience. So, I didn't know it then. I was frustrated and upset with those reasons, but now I know why those things happened and it's affected me in a positive way in the future.
What has lacrosse taught you?
Yeah, the game's taught me so much. And, I like to, like I said, another story I like to tell when I'm talking and doing, talks with youth, that lacrosse gave me my first sense of responsibility. When you're, like I said earlier, you're given a traditional wooden stick and, that stick has powers. You're taking a living being and you're cutting down a tree and giving it a new life form as a stick. And, obviously we don't use those traditional wooden sticks now, but I still carry those values with me. So when I was younger, my dad kind of gave me the responsibility to take care of my stick. He always told me that if I take care of my stick, he'll take care of me. So, that meant, stringing it the right way or taping it the right way and making sure I didn't leave it outside in the rain or not leaving it in the car on a hot day for it to melt. Like those first types of responsibility. And like I said, it's made me a better person and being, knowing that I can overcome things in adversity. that, might come my way. The game's really taught me a lot about myself and, just about the world in general.
Tell us more about Turtle Island Lacrosse.
Yeah, so Turtle Island Lacrosse, it's a company that I started with my partner Randy Stotts, and we wanted to develop something where, there was a spot for Indigenous youth to kind of grow the game and become players that they wanted to, but also to teach non-native people or non-Indigenous people about the game lacrosse. There's so many people that play this game and they have no idea the culture and the traditions that come with it and the origins of our game. So we wanted to, be a recognizable brand that people came to, learn about the game and try to learn the origins and that type of thing. And we feel that's important. I feel that, as Indigenous people, lacrosse gives us, what's the word I'm looking for? Makes us feel relevant in the world. There's so many things that, that's when we play for the Iroquois National, the world stage, we're relevant because we're playing lacrosse. That's the way it feels. And that's just, how it is to be Indigenous. And, we wanted it to be different. We wanted that to change for our next generation. So that's something that we really took to heart and we really continue to strive for.
How does Turtle Island Lacrosse spread Haudenosaunee knowledge and culture?
Like I said before, it's something that, through the game, we're able to teach and people, about our culture and why we do things and what's important to us. And, that's really important for us because, so much of that has been lost because of the effects of residential schools, right? Like back then we weren't allowed to practice our culture and learn our languages and those types of things. And we're trying to teach people, sometimes the hard and negative truths of our history, but we think that's important because, it brings to light, why we're doing it and why we want to do so much to kind of bring it back and make things positive for our next generation of youth because, truthfully, we're still feeling those effects of residential schools through my generation and more. We're still trying to get back our languages that have been lost and different types of things. And like I said before, lacrosse just makes us relevant. So we want to use this game, like I said earlier, as a vehicle to be able to teach non-Indigenous people about our culture and our values and things that we have. Because I feel that, we have so much to offer. I think that, if people can understand our values and what we want to do and the way we live our lives, I think it could really help people, find purpose or want to be better people or different types of things like that and just kind of spread positivity more than anything.
Do you have any pre-game rituals, to help yourself get into the mindset of lacrosse that help you out?
When I was younger, I used to be really, really superstitious. Like it kind of almost made me almost like ruined my days almost, honestly, if I didn't do them right or the same thing every single time. So I've kind of gotten away from it. I guess now I just, tape my stick the same way. I always have a little package of M&Ms before a game, a Gatorade or whatever. So right now I'm not too superstitious because I've gotten away from it. I'm a little embarrassed to, talk about my superstitions I had before, so I won't do that. And there's a lot of so it take too much time, but other than that, that's just the basics now I do.
What's your jersey number?
So I wear number 21. The reason that I wear it is because, like I talked about before, my uncle, I used to go watch him play for the Junior A Arrows. He wore number 12. I wore number 12 all the way growing up, and then one day I kind of decided, I kind of want to do something on my own, so I just switched 21 or 12 to 21, just kind of flipped the numbers, and it became 21, and I've been that ever since. And I think it's kind of a unique number. I don't know a lot of people that wear it or have worn it, so it's something I take a lot of pride in and I enjoy.
So 21 is that your lucky number, or is it just your jersey number?
Yeah, it's my jersey number, but if there's someone tells me to pick a number, I'm usually picking one of my jersey numbers, so I guess it kind of is my lucky number. I don't promote gambling, but if I were, I'd probably put it on 21 black or 21 red.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering those questions I have.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brendan, and thanks to everyone who shared their stories and time with us today. These stories remind us that we need to hold the government of Canada responsible for the commitment of Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action. Today, we focused on 62, Education for Reconciliation. We call upon the federal, provincial, and territorial governments in consultation and collaboration with survivors, Aboriginal peoples, and educators to make age-appropriate curriculum on residential schools, treaties, and Aboriginal peoples' historical and contemporary contributions to Canada, a mandatory education requirement for kindergarten to grade 12 students. 66, Youth Programs. We call upon the federal government to establish multi-year funding for community-based youth organizations to deliver programs on reconciliation and establish a national network to share information and best practices. 87, Sports and Reconciliation. We call upon all levels of government in collaboration with Aboriginal people's sports halls of fame and other relevant organizations to provide public education that tells the national story of Aboriginal athletes and history.
Siyaskas. Thank you for joining us today for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, bringing awareness to Indigenous culture and community. Our Virtual Neighborhood is a program delivered by Kids Up Front and supported by TD. We hope you've enjoyed learning about beading, dancing, lacrosse, and most importantly, about reconciliation. We recognize that this event is a step forward in educating ourselves about reconciliation, and we're committed to continue the work in the coming days.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you to everyone watching. It's been a pleasure having you join me today. Gitamatsu.